Hi everyone, Ostad is live now. আজকের একটা খুব স্পেশাল সেশন, আমাদের খুব চমৎকার একটা কোর্স লঞ্চ হতে যাচ্ছে এন্ড সেই কোর্সের আমাদের লঞ্চিং সেরেমনি হচ্ছে এটা। সো আমরা যারা যারা জয়েন করছি তাদের সবাইকে জানাবো আন্তরিক শুভেচ্ছা এবং অভিনন্দন। দেশে একটা প্যান্ডেমিক সিচুয়েশন চলছে, এরপরও আপনারা যারা যারা জয়েন করছেন বা জয়েন করবেন তাদের সবাইকে জানাচ্ছি আন্তরিক শুভেচ্ছা এবং অভিনন্দন। সো আজকে আমাদের খুব স্পেশাল একটা সেশন এবং এই সেশনে থাকবেন আরো একজন স্পেশাল গেস্ট এবং আমরা তার সাথে অবশ্যই পরিচিত হব। তার আগে আমরা একটু ছোট করে ওস্তাদ সম্পর্কে জেনে নিই। So Ostad হচ্ছে একটা অন লাইভ লার্নিং প্ল্যাটফর্ম that focuses on skill development. Country's top-notch industry experts are your learning partners now, and they are teaching you live. And when in terms of live classes, the question always arises is that where can you get the class link? So these problems is absolutely solved through Ostad platform. Our learners can join class at a single click. Already 6 people have joined us, and thanks আমাদের সাথে জয়েন করার জন্য। সো যেটা বলছিলাম, যখন একটা লাইভ ক্লাস যখন চলেন, একটা লাইভ ক্লাস শেষে লাইভ ক্লাস চলাকালীন অবস্থায় সবার একটা কোশ্চেন জাগে যে আমরা কিভাবে সেই লাইভ ক্লাসগুলোতে জয়েন করতে পারবো। সো এই প্রবলেমটা আমরা সলভ করেছি থ্রু ওস্তাদ প্ল্যাটফর্ম। আমাদের লার্নার্সরা জাস্ট একটা সিঙ্গেল ক্লিকে ক্লাসে জয়েন করতে পারে। Not only that, after every live class, the class recordings are automatically stored in learners dashboard, and they can review it, they can easily revise it. And for a batch আমাদের একটা ডেডিকেটেড হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ গ্রুপ থাকে, সেই হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ গ্রুপে তারা রেগুলার কানেক্টেড থাকতে পারে ইনস্ট্রাক্টরের সাথে। অ্যাজ উই আর ওয়ার্কিং অন স্কিল ডেভেলপমেন্ট অপরচুনিটিস, ইউ নো হোয়াট, স্কিল ডেভেলপমেন্টের জন্য না নেটওয়ার্কিংটা অনেক বেশি জরুরি। আপনি একটা ভালো কমিউনিটির মধ্যে যদি থাকেন, আপনি ইজিলি যে কোনো হেল্পের জন্য আপনি চাইতে পারবেন, আপনি ইনস্ট্রাক্টরকে যে কোনো কোশ্চেন করতে পারবেন, এবং সবচেয়ে বড় কথা হচ্ছে আপনি আপনার নেটওয়ার্কটাকে গ্রো করতে পারবেন। এবং আজকে আমরা খুব চমৎকার একটা কোর্সের লঞ্চিং সেরেমনি করতে যাচ্ছি, and this course is named Product Management Accelerator Program. সো প্রোডাক্ট ম্যানেজমেন্ট এই জিনিসটা কি, আমরা অবশ্যই এটা সম্পর্কে অনেক ডিটেলস জানবো আমাদের আজকের স্পিকারের সাথে। বাট তার আগে একটু ছোট করে আমি একটু যদি বলি, সেটা হচ্ছে আমরা ইউনিভার্সিটি থাকতে অনেক সময় এরকম একটা ব্যাপার থাকতো না যে আমরা কোনো কিছু একটা তৈরি করতে যাচ্ছি, কোনো একটা অ্যাপ তৈরি করতে যাচ্ছি বা কোনো একটা ওয়েব তৈরি করতে যাচ্ছি। সো আমরা তখন না যে কাজটা করতাম, মানে মেইনলি আমি যে কাজটা করতাম সেটা ছিল ডিরেক্ট কোনো একজন কোডারের কাছে চলে যেতাম বা নিজেই কোডিং শেখা শুরু করে দেন হচ্ছে আমরা কোনো রকম একটা প্রোডাক্ট হচ্ছে তৈরি করতাম। বাট একটা প্রোডাক্ট আসলে তৈরি করার চাই তো সেই প্রোডাক্টটাকে ম্যানেজ করা অনেক বেশি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। আমি আজকে সকালে একটা আর্টিকেল পড়ছিলাম, সেটা হচ্ছে যে 1931, আমি ভদ্রলোকের নামটা মনে নেই, তখন থেকে এই যে প্রোডাক্ট ম্যানেজার একটা কোম্পানির জন্য বা একটা বিজনেসের জন্য, and he's called actually the backbone of a company or business. Actually প্রোডাক্ট ম্যানেজাররাই ঠিক করে যে এই প্রোডাক্টের স্ট্র্যাটেজি কিরকম হবে, সেটা যাচ্ছে কোন দিকে, আমি কিভাবে ইউজার থেকে আনতে পারবো। সো এই পুরা ব্যাপারটা নিয়ে ওস্তাদ শুরু করেছে একটা 2-day long on-live bootcamp, and that's called Product Management Accelerator Program. আর এই পুরো কোর্সে আপনাদের সাথে লার্নিং পার্টনার হিসেবে থাকবেন তাসনিম আ রিয়া ম্যাম। She is an AWS CSA-Associate and CSPO I II Certified. সো পুরো জার্নি জুড়ে তিনি আমাদের সাথে থাকবেন। সো অলরেডি যারা যারা আমাদের সাথে জয়েন করেছেন, আই এম রিকোয়েস্টিং all of you to share this ফেসবুক লাইভ সেশন সো দ্যাট আমরা সবাই একসাথে মিলে জানতে পারি, সবাই একসাথে মিলে যাতে ব্যাপারগুলো শিখতে পারি। সো এখন আমরা স্ক্রিনে ডেকে নিচ্ছি তাসনিম আ রিয়া ম্যামকে। Hi, Tasneem ma'am.
Hello, Shaurabh.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine too. আমাদের দেশে অলরেডি একটা প্যান্ডেমিক সিচুয়েশন চলছে এবং এই প্যান্ডেমিকের মধ্যেও আমরা যে সুস্থ আছি সেজন্য আমরা অবশ্যই আল্লাহ তাআলার কাছে শুকরিয়া জানাচ্ছি। সো আপনি আপাতত আছেন হচ্ছে কানাডাতে। সো আমি একটু প্রোডাক্ট ম্যানেজমেন্টের এই বড় শব্দগুলোর দিকে যাওয়ার আগে একটু আপনার কাছ থেকে জেনে নিতে চাচ্ছি যে I'd like to ask yourself to introduce yourself and your amazing journey to this product management.
Thanks, Shorav. So thank you everyone for joining my session. And I hope you stay safe during this pandemic situation. I don't think any one country can be isolated. We're all going through this together globally. Aside from that, in terms of my introduction, I'm Tasneem, as you know. And I started my journey in product management as a back-end engineer. So I started working initially in consulting, where most of my clients were banks. So what I help them do is migrate their on-premise infrastructure, like all their on-premise software, into the cloud. And the cloud of choice most often that clients went with were either a hybrid cloud model or AWS. So from there, working as a back-end engineer, I kind of got a sense of the products we were trying to build to solve some of the problems. And that's when I really got into product management. So product management for me at that time was understanding what the product was, and I thought I can just wing it because it's like there's a product, I have some intuitive ideas. But as I unraveled it, it seemed like anyone can draw, but not everyone is an artist. Similar to like everyone can cook, but not everyone is a chef. So eventually, as I grew into my career, I had to learn the art of product management. Currently, I work at a big tech company as a technical program manager. And here I do similar work, and I work closely with the engineers to execute the products that my teams build. And I'm currently, so I also work in the cloud space at the moment.
Thank you, Tasneem A Rea, ma'am, to introduce yourself and your amazing journey to this product management. Already, Moinul Islam has joined us from Nilphamari. Thanks, Moinul Islam, for joining us. So, for a newbie like me, I'm an entrepreneur, you will say, but for a newbie like me, what is actually product management and why is it so necessary or important in a company or business?
Right, that's a really interesting question. So product management can mean many different things. It really depends on the industry. But I will tell you the context in a tech industry or in the space of a startup, what product management means. So product management is a combination of strategic thinking, and then it's also a combination of business analysis, but at the same time, project management. So you can say it's a hybrid model combining all three. Ultimately, the role of a product manager is to help grow the product in the right direction and then expand the business. And many startups I've seen fail in Silicon Valley, in Toronto, or in even in Dhaka, because once you start an idea, they're unable to scale and meet their customer demands. So a large part of a product manager's job is to actually interact with the customers, segment the market, and understand what the user really wants. And many times I've seen that users themselves are not aware of what they need in terms of your platform or your product. So it's the role of the product manager to find out in the long run what the customer needs are. And this, like I've said again, it can be intuitive. You can think if it's a food startup, then of course people would want food delivery. And some ideas do come intuitively. But after a certain point, to scale any startup or scale any product, you need to follow certain frameworks and apply those frameworks very effectively. And that's where the art of product management comes in.
Thanks, Tasneem A Rea, ma'am, for explaining this so clearly. For an entrepreneur like me, okay, and I am very new to this sector. If I want to develop a product, then should I go for product management? Should I jump for product management or something like I code something just like that? যেটা আমি বুঝলাম আপনার এই কথা শুনে সেটা হচ্ছে যে অনেকটা এরকম যে আমি যখন একটা প্রোডাক্ট তৈরি করলাম এবং আমি যখন এই প্রোডাক্টকে স্কেল করতে যাচ্ছি then comes the term product management, right?
Yes, and also not yes. So if you think of startups, it's good to be proactive than to be reactive. Many times, startups are reactive to customer needs. But having a product manager from the onset of building a product means that you won't be reactive, but you can be proactive. Think of it like this. If someone, you eat whatever you want, at some point you will probably get diabetes if you consume excessive sugar. Then you go see a doctor. But if you consult a nutritionist from before and you work with a nutritionist to get rid of your bad habits, ultimately you won't end up having diabetes, hopefully. That's like a very simplistic analogy of how product management and why product managers are needed. So yes, after a certain point to scale any business, you would need a good product manager, which is why this job is so much in demand. But also it is very much advised to have a product manager at the onset before you even launch your product when you're at the build stage.
Okay, I have got my answer. But how was the idea of product management two-day long boot camp, and it's an accelerator program? So how's the idea of product management accelerator program come up, and why have you chosen Ostad?
Right, that's a very good question. So I started working in big tech quite recently, and like I've said before, I was working in consulting. So during that time, I played around with the idea of product manager. Before, a few years ago, I thought of starting this project, but I always felt that I was not good enough. It's kind of like an imposter syndrome. And ultimately, I started reading, actually actively reading, learning more about product management. And that's when I thought, you know what, I should share my learning with others who are on the same boat as me. Maybe it will help them structure their ideas. Maybe it will help them in some way accelerate their careers. So that's when this idea of product manager came into my mind. And also, when I was starting some side projects after work, I realized that product management, in fact, the way it's applied in a corporate world is quite different than it's applied in a startup world. But there are like large amounts of parallels as well. So I wanted to bridge that gap too. So that's why I got into this, this idea of product manager came into my mind. And then why Bangladesh? Well, I'm Bengali ethnically, although I grew up, I stayed outside for some time. And I always think that the startup scene in Dhaka is so booming and there's so many great ideas, but I often fail to see them scale. And at some level, it affects me because I see our counterparts, Indian startups, doing really well, or they're able to scale. And now I started digging into the question, why is India succeeding in their startup scene, whereas Bangladesh is kind of struggling in that area? And a large part of this, that it's like strategic thinking. We need good PMs, we need good product leaders to actually help scale this and grow these businesses and grow these startup ideas. So that's why I chose the Bangladesh context. Now the third part, Ostad. So I was playing around with several edtech startups and I talked to a couple of them. And I honestly got the best response from Ostad. I think they're a whole group of very friendly cohort of people. Their platform is great. I also think they really respect and value the mentors and the knowledge that the mentors or the instructors are bringing to the broader community. So overall, my experience with Ostad has been great. And not to say others were not great, but I just felt better moving forward and collaborating with Ostad for this idea.
থ্যাঙ্কস তাসনিম আপু, আমাদের সঙ্গে কিছু ভালো ভালো আপনি কথা বললেন, বাট আমি একটু ছোট করে একটু অ্যাড করে নিতে চাচ্ছি। অলরেডি যারা যারা আমাদের সাথে জয়েন করেছেন, যে যেখান থেকে জয়েন করুন না কেন, অবশ্যই এবং অবশ্যই আপনারা কমেন্ট সেকশনে জানান আপনারা কোথা থেকে জয়েন করেছেন, এবং আপনাদের মধ্যে যদি কোনো কোশ্চেন থাকে যে হোয়াট ইজ প্রোডাক্ট ম্যানেজমেন্ট এন্ড হোয়াই ইজ ইট সো নেসেসারি এন্ড উড ইউ রিয়েলি নিড প্রোডাক্ট ম্যানেজমেন্ট ইন কারেন্ট সিচুয়েশন, সো আপনারা সেই প্রতিটা কোশ্চেনগুলো আমাদের এই কমেন্ট সেকশনে করতে পারেন। অলরেডি বেশ কয়েকজন জানাচ্ছেন তারা কোথা থেকে জয়েন করেছেন। So I'm going to the next question, and that is, you have named the course is Product Management Accelerator Program. So why have you named it Accelerator Program?
That's a good question. So accelerator means you kind of go through a challenge situation where the idea is for me to not teach you and you take notes and you learn. Product management is not rote learning. It cannot be memorized. You need to learn to think, which is a harder challenge for any instructor to shape the thinking of their students. So what an accelerator means is that you will go through this 2-day challenge and ultimately the result will be that you can start thinking like a product manager. I will also supply you with templates and frameworks that you can use, but most importantly, the value addition is the students learning to think critically. And that's what an accelerator program means. So by the end of the 2 days, you would be on par, or at least I hope that you will be on par with some of the product managers that I see in North America and I work with. And that's the standard that I am striving for.
An individual like me, why should I join this 2 day long bootcamp, on-live bootcamp, and what will you cover in these 2 days?
Right. So why you should, there are two parts of the question. Why you should join. I think we need good product leaders, and these are skills that you can apply at any level. So even if you're working at a bank, you work at a startup, or any other sector or industry, it will be a useful learning module for you. And also students who are striving to find a job in the product market or in the startup scene in Dhaka would benefit from my course. So why you should take it? It's because you will ultimately end up learning the same things that I teach my students in North America, which I hope will add some value to your career, either breaking into tech or even to accelerate your career path. And the second question was what I will cover in this course. So let me just bring up my notes. So what we will cover is there are 6 parts, 6 core essential parts to product thinking. And I've broken those down into 6 different steps. So we have a 6-hour session. So 3 days on the first day and 3 hours on the first day and 3 hours on the second day. So every hour we will go and deep dive into one of these steps. And the steps are these. Customer acquisition by implementing a product management lifecycle. So a product management lifecycle, I'm sure you can just Google it and read tons, but applying it in the context of customer acquisition frameworks is what I'm going to teach you in the first hour. The second hour would be about monetization. There are many pricing or many ways to price products. And depending on the kind of product or idea or startup you have, I will teach you certain strategies in how to monetize a product, especially using Agile. And not just for launching a product, but also when growing a product and scaling, what kind of pricing strategies generally big tech uses. Third would be about metrics. I've seen many startups fail because they don't apply metrics or data effectively. So what I will teach you is the common metrics that any product manager uses to understand their customer behavior. So we will learn more about metrics, how to gather metrics, and how to gather user data. After that, the 5th, so now we are on to the second day. So we'll cover metrics. Second hour, we will cover product ideation and design. So anyone can come up, we can sit together for 1 hour and come up with 100 different startup ideas. The question is, which one is worth your time to invest on? So from there, we will discuss product ideation, how we come up with a product we can monetize on, and then design it in terms of system designing as well, such as from a high level, design a product that we want to launch, but also how we can explain that design to the engineering team. Because ultimately, the product management role is a very cross-functional role. They work with engineers very closely. They work with legal. They work with marketing. They also work with business. So in the sense that if you want to start a startup or launch your product, you need to work with VC funds. What that means is that you'll be working with pretty similar senior business leaders and present and be able to articulate your idea in a very concise and succinct way. So we will cover how to do all of that through in the second hour on the second day, which is product ideation and design. Then would be the product growth model. So now that you have launched your product, how are you going to grow the product? How do you reach your customer expanse? So that's what we will cover. And the last would be very effective, how to write a very effective product requirement document. Many times in North America and Canada, even in the US, or some of the many startups that I spoke to, some in Bangladesh as well, they've really struggled to write very effective product requirement document. This document is like the core piece for any product managers. This is the same piece that goes to VC funds, that goes to users or who wants to invest in your product, so that they can understand with a 1-pager or 2-pager what your product is about. And I will share the frameworks we use in big tech to actually write a very effective product requirement document. So those are the 6 steps that I will cover. And hopefully by the end of it, you will benefit in some way in terms of product thinking and product management.
থ্যাংকস তাসনিম ম্যাম। দ্যাট মিনস আপনি অনেকগুলো ব্যাপার হচ্ছে কভার করছেন এন্ড সবগুলোকে আপনি জাস্ট 6টা স্টেপের মধ্যে নিয়ে এসেছেন। আই ওয়াজ জাস্ট নোটিং ডাউন। ফার্স্ট অফ অল দিস ইজ কাস্টমার অ্যাকুইজিশন এন্ড দেন কাস্টমার রিটেনশন এন্ড এনগেজমেন্ট এন্ড দেন মনিটাইজেশন, বিকজ কাস্টমার তো আসতে হয় না, তাকে আমাকে অবশ্যই তার পকেট থেকে টাকা বের করে নিয়ে আসতে হবে। এন্ড this will be covered on the first day, and in the second day you will cover 3 topics, and those are growth, user psychology and effective PRD document, because PRD is very important. এটা আমি নিজেও অনেকবার ভুক্তভোগী, আমি অনেকে দিয়ে কাজ করিয়েছি, আমি জানি না আমি কি কাজ করাচ্ছি আর সেও জানে না যে সে আসলে কি কাজ করছে। সো এভরিথিং শুড বি ডকুমেন্টেড এন্ড PRD ব্যাপারটা আরো অনেক বিশাল, এন্ড ইউ উইল কভার দিস টপিকস। সো আমি আপনার কাছে আরেকটা কোশ্চেন একটু জানতে চাচ্ছিলাম, সেটা হচ্ছে আমি এই শব্দটা প্রায় শুনি এবং আমি ব্যাপারটা বুঝি না, এন্ড দ্যাট ইজ প্রোডাক্ট লাইফ সাইকেল। সো এই ব্যাপারটা যদি একটু আমাদেরকে এনলাইটেন যদি করেন, প্রোডাক্ট লাইফ সাইকেল।
Right. So product life cycle generally has 6 steps. Eta mane holo product from the moment you conceive the idea of the product idea in your mind, you have to go through like 6 very specific steps generally to launch a product. And do you want me to elaborate on product life cycle? Like what the 6 steps are?
Yes, আমি প্রোডাক্ট লাইফ সাইকেল সম্পর্কে জানতে চাচ্ছিলাম।
So initially you start researching. You research your users. So you have, for example, 10 different startup ideas. Now you are thinking, which one should I prioritize? Which one's worth my time? For every startup idea you have, you won't probably have a market for it. And your idea wouldn't be as valued if there are no users using your product. So you need to think from those angles. So after you do some research, now you need to start thinking about developing. Like, how do I develop like a minimal viable product so that I can test the market to see if it's responding in the way I expected it to respond? That's the development phase. After that, you kind of introduce it to the market, like a small group of people in the market who are your target beta users. So they kind of test your product, they give you input, they give you feedback, and then you start improving your product again. Because ultimately what you're trying to do is cater to your customer taste. So for that, you're kind of using a smaller group of the market to understand your product better, understand your minimal viable product better. After that, you kind of go through the growth phase. So you got some feedback from your users. They like some things, they don't like some things. You improve on the things they don't like. After that, you kind of think of growing. So then you develop more your MVP. You kind of add more features, you change features, you kind of remold it. And after that growth phase, it's like the mature phase, which is pretty much, your product, you have scaled it, and now you're kind of trying to reach 5 different target markets. You have different types of user pools, and ultimately the cycle like kind of begins again. Is that clear?
Yes, আমি কোশ্চেনে খুব ভালো আনসার পেয়েছি অলরেডি। যারা যারা আমাদের সাথে জয়েন করেছেন, আই এম রিকোয়েস্টিং ইউ টু শেয়ার দিস ইভেন্ট, বিকজ আমরা সবাই যাতে একসাথে মিলে যাতে শিখতে পারি, সবাই যাতে একসাথে মিলে জানতে পারি। সো অলরেডি 2টা কমেন্ট আমাদের কাছে এসেছে, and one is from Kishore Hashemi, and he said you should join cause your school or uni will never teach you this Bangladesh. আমি এই কোশ্চেনে হয়তো একটু পরে আসতাম। খুব চমৎকার একটা কমেন্ট তিনি করেছেন যে আসলে এই ব্যাপারগুলো এটা নট অনলি যে প্রোডাক্ট ম্যানেজমেন্ট, প্রজেক্ট ম্যানেজমেন্ট, এই ব্যাপারটাও না আমাদেরকে শেখানো হয় না ওইভাবে। And another comment is from Mridul Khandekar, and he said, what do you think that defines good product design? একটা চমৎকার প্রোডাক্ট ডিজাইনের জন্য কোন জিনিসটা মানে কোন জিনিসটা ডিফাইন করে that product is good?
Okay, so thank you, Kishore, for the shout out. And in terms of Midul's question, what makes an effective design? That's a very broad question that I can talk to you for like several hours. It's also another reason you should join the course. But as a short answer, what makes a good design is a design that caters to the customer, but also you're able to build it. Sometimes I find product managers struggle with very large ideas with a very small engineering capacity. And it's very important to learn the art of balancing customer, like user needs versus what you can deliver. For example, when I was starting my startup, I struggled with one area, which is I had a VC fund who was funding me, but at the same time, my idea was too ambitious. My customer liked the ambitious idea. They liked that MVP, but I didn't have the funds to continue growing it at the scale I wanted, because my design didn't fit my constraints. So a good product design would balance these two and find like a very silver lining between both lanes.
Okay, I think Midul Khandakar has got his answer, and another question is from Ostad Facebook page, and that is, let me find the question. Okay, the tagline is break into product management the FAANG way. We know
Sorry, I took to road dishes.
Of course. It's fine now. Okay, so you have used the tagline that is break into product management the FAANG way. So একজন বাংলাদেশী হিসেবে আমি যদি জানতে চাই যে FAANG কি করে যেটা মানে বাংলাদেশে কেউ করছে না বা করতে পারছে না, so what is the difference between FAANG and local way?
Right, so I wouldn't see it as FAANG and local, and a disclaimer, it is not a way to say that Bangladesh economy is like, or startups are not doing enough. We have our own ways to get around problems. But what FAANG is like, they're pretty much big tech companies, and they are products, they have millions of users across the globe. So certainly they're doing something different than other startups who only cater to a smaller market. What is different between the approaches? It's the scalability of the businesses. So the reason I brought up FAANG is because oftentimes, there are two reasons, basically. I see the startups here in North America struggle very similarly as in Bangladesh. They have very similar problems. They have very similar fallbacks. And they have very similar constraints that they can get past. So in that sense, what FAANG did, they were successful in overcoming those milestones. They were successful in solving those problems. So therefore, they were certainly doing something different. And they have very internal models and tools that they leverage to actually scale to that extent. And the second reason I brought this up is because oftentimes when someone, say, from outside Bangladesh brings knowledge to Bangladesh, there's the idea that maybe we are not getting the same kind of knowledge that someone in North America would get. But that, in fact, it's not true. Like in terms of my course, I'm teaching the same content to my North American students and my Bangladeshi students. So there's not a difference. The only difference would be in the market research and analysis part, just because the geographic markets are a little bit different. So those are the two reasons I said the FAANG way. And in terms of big tech versus other companies, Bangladesh or outside, the main difference is in terms of scalability. They are very successful in scaling their businesses to billions of users, such as Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Apple. If you think of these big tech giants, even Airbnb, the more commonly heard tech companies, they were able to solve the scalability problems because of very effective product managers.
Thanks, Tasneem ma'am. I have got the answer. Why have you mentioned the break into product management the FAANG way? ওকে, আমি আরেকটা কোশ্চেন আপনাকে করতে যাচ্ছিলাম, সেটা হচ্ছে আমি সকালে একটু হালকা পড়াশোনা করছিলাম প্রোডাক্ট ম্যানেজমেন্ট এই ব্যাপারটাকে ওই লাইভ সেশনটা দেখার পর থেকে, and the question was like that, a product manager, a professional product manager, he has to be expert in user experience, business, and technology. So is there any specific background professional product manager should come?
I would say no, but also I think if you are a student who's planning to go to university, it always makes sense to go into a STEM field. Now for elaboration STEM, more computer, science and engineering fields, technology and engineering fields. The reason I say that is because if you look, especially during COVID, many of the industries were affected. Although tech was affected, it was not affected to the same scale that some of the other industries were. So as the future trend is going, technology is the solution to our bigger problems. Say if it's lifestyle or if it's food or if it's any other issue that you have in growth, technology is the solution. So if you are a young person starting out in university, I would strongly suggest to not study something like, say, political science or English, unless you're very passionate about it. If you really want to start your own business or you want to get into engineering or any job in today's field, it would be prudent for you to study STEM. But that said, I myself am not from a STEM background. I actually studied political science. So therefore, I know the struggles of someone from a arts degree breaking into technology, because I've gone through that entire phase for years. So if you are trying to change mid-career, it doesn't matter, because your professional experience counts more than your educational background. But if you are someone in your teenage years looking for a university degree and advice, then study STEM.
Okay, I have got my answer. And my last question, because we have almost come to the end of this session, সেটা হচ্ছে at the end of the day, we have to make a product that would be a habit. রাইট ফর এক্সাম্পল, আমি যখন কোনো একটা জায়গায় যাই, আমি একটু একটা পাঠাও ঢুকে সার্চ করে দেখি, বা উবারে ঢুকে সার্চ করে দেখি, বা কোনো একটা খাবার কেনার আগে দেন হচ্ছে আমি একটু হয়তো বা ফুড পান্ডা একটু সার্চ করে দেখি, বিকজ these products have become habit of mine. So how can we make a product habit? Because then the customer acquisition, retention, and engagement will come.
So that is one of the biggest struggles of a product manager. Now, how we can do that, it's something we will also cover during my course when we talk about growth and customer retention. So one example, Instacart. It's pretty similar to Chaldal in Dhaka. So they're also struggling with the same problem, whereas they're getting a lot of users to use their product, like the app, to deliver like home groceries to their home. But at the same time, they're unable to actually retain the customers. So it's a problem they are trying to solve too. So at a high level, how you solve it and build a customer habit, it depends from industry to industry. Let's talk about Instacart. You start with a customer pain point. One of the pain points that Instacart has is that their customers are not getting quality delivery of grocery. Now, that's a very big problem to solve, especially for a grocery delivery company like Instacart. So what they can do is to actually help their customers build this habit and stay with using Instacart is by solve this problem. They need to find a way to deliver more quality goods to their customers at the end of the day. Because say, for example, I myself have used Instacart and half my groceries were pretty much not like fresh. And therefore, like after 1 or 2 usage, I don't want to use it anymore. I would rather go to the grocery store and get fresh produce. So these are some problems that they can start coping with and actually start thinking about ways to deliver fresh groceries.
Okay, I've got my answer. সো যারা যারা একদম শুরু থেকে শেষ পর্যন্ত এই সেশনটার মধ্যে ছিলেন, আমরা আবারও আপনাদেরকে রিকোয়েস্ট করছি জাস্ট একটু কমেন্ট সেকশনে জানান আপনারা কোত্থেকে এই লাইভটা দেখছেন, যে শুধুমাত্র যে বাংলাদেশ থেকে হতে হবে এমন কোনো ব্যাপার নাই। এন্ড যারা যারা কমেন্ট করেছে, খুব চমৎকার চমৎকার কিছু কমেন্টস এসেছে। ওয়ান ইজ ফ্রম কিশোর হাশমি, তিনি তো বলেই দিয়েছেন যে ইউ শুড জয়েন কজ বিকজ ইউর স্কুল আর ইউনিভার্সিটি উইল নেভার টিচ ইউ দিস বাংলাদেশ। আমি এই কোশ্চেনটা আপনাকে করেছিলাম যে এই টপিকটা আসলে শিখবো কোত্থেকে। সো এটা আর কি। আর একটা ব্যাপার একটু তাসনিম, আমি জাস্ট লাস্ট একটা কোশ্চেন করতে যাচ্ছি, যারা প্রোডাক্ট ম্যানেজার হতে চাচ্ছে তারা শুরু করার জন্য কি কি রিসোর্স ইউজ করতে পারে?
কি resource? Okay, so I'll start with that. Anyone who wants to be a product manager first needs to understand what type of product manager they want. There are usually 2 types. There's like a general product manager, then there is more of an engineering, which is a technical product manager. So when you want to break into this, some of the resources I suggest is looking at a lot of LinkedIn learning tools. So if you're able to enroll in those, they have pretty good content as well. Internally in Big Tech, we also use those content. TechCrunch is a good newspaper to read about what products are doing in North America, why they're successful, why they're not successful. And then also some free content on the product school. They have some tons of free material that you can download and read. Maybe reading that would be useful. But what I find most useful is start on any idea you have, even if it's small, or growing a social media account, or you kind of cook and you sell it to other people, because what that gives you is an actual flavor of product thinking when you're implementing. You have to do it to learn it. It's product manager is not something I can send you slides and teach for hours and you will learn, you will come out to be a great product manager. My role and responsibility is to actually shape your thinking. And you can help yourself by doing that, by starting a side project, by reading externally. and then start asking me questions. How would I solve this difficult problem? How would I measure my customer success in this area? And I'd be happy to answer those.
So thanks Tasneem Apu for your valuable time এবং আপনি আমাদের সব আপনার যে এক্সপেরিয়েন্সটা ছিল এক্সপেরিয়েন্সটা আপনি আমাদের সাথে খুব চমৎকারভাবে শেয়ার করেছেন এবং যারা যারা শুরু থেকে শেষ পর্যন্ত ছিলেন তাদেরকে অসংখ্য অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ তারা ধৈর্য নিয়ে পুরো সেশনটা দেখেছেন সো আমরা সেশনটা আজকে আপাতত এখানে শেষ করে দিচ্ছি সবাইকে আসসালামু আলাইকুম এন্ড অফ কোর্স গুড নাইট তাসনিম আপু আপনাকেও শুভকামনা আপনি অনেক ব্যস্ততার মাঝে আমাদেরকে সময় দিয়েছেন
Thank you, Shourav. It was great being live. It was my first time being live, so it's nice to actually hear proper questions and answer them. I'm looking forward to the course.
Yes. So আপনারা যারা যারা এখনো কোর্সে জয়েন করেননি আমরা ডেসক্রিপশনে হচ্ছে কোর্সের লিংকটা দিয়ে রেখেছি জাস্ট আপনারা ওখানে ক্লিক করবেন আপনাদের সিটটা বুক করবেন এন্ড দ্যাটস ইট সো যারা ফিউচার প্রোডাক্ট ম্যানেজার আছেন স্যার আপনাদের সবাইকে অসংখ্য স্বাগতম আপনাদের সাথে আমাদের দেখা হবে কোর্সের ফার্স্ট ডেতে থ্যাঙ্কস সবাইকে
Thank you.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম
Bye.